I want to move to a more positive when it comes to this team, and that is the defense. I will say, if this defense pans out, which it should, this should be probably one of the best defenses of the Will Muschamp era. I mean, I look back at that 2017 unit. I literally talked about on the show Monday. So good at getting the ball off people, the turnovers. That's the reason that team won 9 games, without a doubt.
For sure.
You have to replace Kinlaw. You have to replace Wanham. You have to replace Brunson. But you bring in a guy like Jordan Birch. Excuse me. You bring in a guy like Jordan Birch. I think Zach Pickens should make a huge jump from year 1 to year 2. And you look at that secondary. And, I mean, you look at that defense, and it's just ridden with talent. You talked about all the talent Muschamp's recruited. They have recruited talent on the defensive side of the ball. Just talk about the defense as a whole, some things you like. I mean, listen, I think the big question is, can you replace the voids left by Kinlaw, Wanham, and Brunson? But all signs to me point that this should be a really, really good defense, and a defense that, listen, South Carolina, because the struggles offensively, I think it's going to be a defense that this team's going to lean on to win some games this year.
Yeah, I do too. And you know, listen, the good thing about this defense is, you know, okay, so you have some pieces that you need to replace on the defensive line. You know, Kinlaw, Wanham, obviously. So let's just say that USC's, you know, pass rush isn't fantastic this year, okay, but it's marginal. The great part about this defense, though, is on the back end, you've got guys who are all going to play in the NFL within the next couple of years. I mean, Mukwamu is a first-round talent. Horn, I really want J.C. Horn to break out this year. Yeah. Kind of like Mukwamu did last year.
My bold prediction is J.C. gets his first career pick in the first game. I don't know if it's because I want it to happen.
Wait a second. Does he not? He doesn't have any
2 full seasons, 0 interceptions. That's that's the big knock on JC. And people ask me all the time, why is Izzy getting – because, you know, there's a fun little head-to-head, I think. It's like, who's the better player? Like, you love to compare and contrast, but they're both great players. But people ask me all the time, why is Izzy getting more love nationally than JC? I'm like, well, JC hasn't had that big game. He hasn't had that Georgia. That's what put Izzy on the map. So – yeah, 2 careers, and he does not get the ball thrown his way a lot. That's a big thing too. But to be fair, JC's had some opportunities, and I mean, you know, the UNC game, he had one go right through his hands, and unfortunately against Florida last year, you have one called back because of penalty. But yeah, zero picks through 2 seasons, which is crazy for a player that's good as he is. Crazy.
That's fascinating, actually, and I probably should have known that, but that is a really crazy stat to me.
Yeah.
I probably did know that, but it's
yeah. So my bold take is he gets a pick in game 1, and even bolder take is, let's say he leads the SEC in picks this year. Now that would be something. So
there you go. Mukwamu's second.
Yeah, there you go. I'd be fine with that. But I agree with you. Those are both first round talents for sure. I mean, no doubt.
And so I mean, I think that's the positive, right? That's the positive spin. So you lose guys on the defensive line, but here's the thing. That secondary is probably the deepest it's been, you know, under Will Muschamp, which is fantastic. And you've got, you know, NFL talent back there. So I don't think it's going to be as noticeable maybe, you know, as it was a couple years back. But, you know, again, you know, Jordan Birch is the real deal. Kind of interested to see, you know, how many snaps he gets, you know, and again, you know, Zach Pickens, I've heard just wonderful things about that guy. I mean, he gets off blocks really, really well. He's fast. You know, he can plug up the holes. I definitely think, you know, he's going to live up to all of that hype. But again, you know, there's some also holes, you know, in the linebacking core. You know, I mean, you know, you lose a guy like TJ Brunson, you know, who was a starter for all 4 years.
Underrated leader, I would say. I think that's a good way to classify him. Yeah.
Not a super vocal guy, but just you know, and just in terms of knowing what to do and where to be. Yeah. And they lost two linebackers over the last couple of years who I think were really fantastic players. Bryson Allen Williams, my former intern, love that guy to death, and TJ Brunson. And you know that's really, really hard to replace.